Trip is brought to you by the Best Buy Children's Foundation.
Hello and welcome to the Exploring Carlsbad Caverns electronic field trip. We've got quite a show in store for you today as we broadcast from deep inside the cave you see behind me. To get us started, please welcome the Superintendent of Carlsbad Caverns.
Hello. Welcome to Carlsbad Caverns National Park. I'm John Benjamin, the superintendent of the National Park, but you could probably tell that from my uniform. I'd like to welcome you to my favorite room inside Carlsbad Caverns. Take a look around at all the remarkable decorations, and I'm sure you'll understand why. Of course, many of you know of Carlsbad because of our famous bat population. In the summer, we get nearly 400,000 bats living deep in the bat cave. It isn't peak season yet, but there are some bats living in these parts even today. Let me walk over here to show you something really neat. Oh, if we could get the camera to tilt up a little bit, I'll show you the top secret entrance to a passage most people don't know is even there. Let me just work my way up this way and through here and right here on this little ledge. It's a tight squeeze for about 20 feet, but it opens up into an amazing room. Now, don't tell anyone about that entrance. We don't want inexperienced visitors to wander in there. Well, I suppose it's about time to get the show started. Today, you'll be learning all about how these large rooms were formed deep inside a mountain, how all the amazing decorations were created, and how different creatures, including you and I, have used the cave over the years. So open your eyes, look around, and enjoy your exploration into Carlsbad Caverns National Park.
Thank you, sir, for that illuminating first look at the cave. Now let's go explore Carlsbad Caverns.
Carlsbad Caverns National Park, where we're broadcasting to you live from way deep beneath the cave. Guys, how far are we beneath the cave? Sorry, beneath the surface.
750 feet.
Right, we're 750 feet. That's way down. It's like the equivalent of a 75-story building. My name is Marjorie. I'm one of the rangers here at Carlsbad Cavern. I want to introduce some other folks to you.
I'm Mason Bowles, and I go to Mitchell Elementary in Muncie, Indiana.
My name's Connor McIlvery, and I go to Lake Harriet Elementary in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Hi, I'm Roselle, and I go to Sunset Elementary here in Carlsbad, New Mexico.
Today we've got a great show for you. We're going to learn a lot about caves, how they were formed, cave decorations, some things that live in the cave. But before we go any further, we need to thank some sponsors. Guys, can you help me out?
We have Ball State University,
Best Buy Children's Foundation,
and the Carlsbad National Park Service.
And the National Park Foundation. So we thank these sponsors. Without them, this wouldn't happen. We want to give you a preview today. We're going to be learning about, like I said, cave decorations, cave formation, inhabitants. We're going to be broadcasting from several locations. We are at Left Hand Tunnel. We're going to be going to the King's Palace area, the Rock of Ages, and the Natural Entrance. let's tell you a little bit about where we are. We're at Left Hand Tunnel. Mason, can you give us some cool stuff about Left Hand Tunnel?
We have, this is the Lake of the Clouds is the lowest part in all of Carlsbad Caverns, and it's 1,037 feet underground, and when they give tours, there are no electrical lights, and we bring in lanterns, and there's like little tape stuff for a trail.
Right, the tape trail, and it's important to stay in the path, right, because we don't want to get off trail and damage anything. We want this to be an interactive site, so you're going to have chances to interact with us on the show today. Mason, what's one way they can interact?
They can call the phone number on the bottom of your screen.
Okay. Connor, can you read that for us?
1-866-279-8716.
And Roselle, what's another way they can interact?
You can also email our Bank of Experts at the Natural Entrance.
Right. We really want you to participate with us today. So call in those questions, email those questions, and we'll get with you as soon as we can on those things. We also have a special segment that's going to be off the website. We've got, as you know, the game that is online. There's a level 1, a level 2, and we're going to learn about something special as far as that goes. Tell a little bit about the game, Mason.
You can make your own character and like choose your hat or the head or the body or the legs or the feet, and you can go around and talk to people and talk to rangers and talk to a whole lot of people, and you can like take pictures of like the bat flight, and you can become a very skilled ranger.
That's right. It's a fun thing. Remember that you can be doing that all throughout the year, so visit the website. The website is www.bsu.edu. Can you finish it for me, Connor?
/EFT/caves.
Right, right. We will now, let's see, we're going to also tell you about the Choose Your Own Adventure section, and that's where you voted off the website. We'll be revealing what were the winners for that. We want to go to Paula, who is at the Natural Entrance. She's one of our locations.
Hey.
Paula?
Thank you, Marjorie. Yes, we're out here outside in the desert. It's a little cool this morning, but not too bad. Nice sunny day. We're down here at the Natural Entrance. My name's Paula. I work here at Carlsbad Caverns, and I'm originally from Indiana. Here with me we have...
Hi, I'm Elia Dominguez, and I go to Pierre Leyva Middle School.
That's in Carlsbad, New Mexico. Today what we'll be sharing with you is some of the life that was here a long time ago that's now long dead.
And some that's here today, like bats.
So, Elia, are you afraid of bats?
No, bats won't hurt anybody.
Yeah, we'll find out more about those things later on today. On to the next. Paul and Haley.
I'm Paul Berger. I'm the park geologist here at Carlsbad Caverns.
I'm Haley Hunter, and I'm from Cowan Elementary School in Muncie, Indiana.
And we're here in the King's Palace. This is one of the better decorated areas of the cave. And we're going to be learning a lot more about those cave decorations. And Haley and I also got to go on several adventures that we'll be telling you about. But right now we're going to learn about a couple of formations here in King's Palace.
Yes, there's a really cool formation, at least I think, and it's called the Frustrated Lovers, because it's a stalactite and a stalagmite that are almost touching. There's about a credit card's width in there that they're not touching, so.
Great. And we're going to learn a lot more about some of the other formations here, but for right now we're going to go to Dave at Rock of Ages.
Thanks, Paul. We're standing here in the middle of the big room right now. It's one of the largest underground chambers that we know of in the U.S. We're going to talk about how it got here, but we want to talk just real quickly about some of the cool formations that we have in here, and I'd like to introduce this young man.
Hi, I'm Noah Delagadell from Muncie, Indiana, Cowan Elementary, and I have a stalactite that, what I'm going to be telling you is a way that you can remember a stalactite and a stalagmite. A stalactite has C for ceiling, and a stalagmite has G for ground.
Wow, cool.
Hi, I'm Connor McCoy, and I'm going to be talking about columns and the Rock of Ages later in the show, and I go to Mitchell Elementary in Muncie, Indiana.
So we'll be talking about stalactites, stalagmites. We'll be talking about some of these really cool other formations in here, but that's going to come up in a little bit later on the program. So we want to head back to Marjorie.
Thanks, everybody. We want to take a question from a caller. Mason?
Yes, we have Sonny from Texas. Go ahead, Sonny. What's your question?
When did the bat come to Carlsbad Cave?
I tell you what, since that's a bat question, why don't we take it to Paula? What do you think?
Yeah,
Paula? Paula?
Okay, thank you. And I want to make sure I have your question right. Did you say when did the bats come to Carlsbad Cavern? Okay, well, I think that's a question that Elia could answer. How long have they been here?
Well, the bats have been here. They're one of the first known mammals to come, and they have been here for hundreds of thousands of years.
Absolutely, a long time. We don't have an exact date. So back to you, Marjorie.
Thanks, Paula and Elia. Thanks, Sonny, for your question. Now we want to take one from Nick from Florida.
Go ahead, Nick.
My question is, how did the formations get their name, like lion's tail?
Ooh, good question. How did they get their names? Should we go to...
I can.
You want to?
Yeah. Like the lion's tail, it looked like a lion's tail, and they have a formation called the bashful elephant, and it really looks like an elephant. So that's how they get their names.
Yeah, a lot of the formations get their names because of what they look like to certain people. Remember, as you start in the cave, things have kind of scary names, and as the first explorer got deeper and deeper in, the names became more friendly and more colorful as he felt more and more comfortable. Good question. Thanks, Nick. Now we have a question, Heather from Indiana. Go ahead, Heather.
I was wondering if you could tell me how long the Lechuguilla Cavern is.
Great question. Let's go to Paul for that one. Paul?
Thanks, Marjorie. Do you have that answer for them?
Yes, it's 110 miles.
That's right, and it's getting longer every year. We're still doing active exploration in Lechuguilla Cave. Thank you for your question. Marjorie?
Thank you, Paul and Haley and Heather. And now we have Ray from Alaska. Go ahead, Ray.
Guys still mine the bat droppings, and if no, why?
That's a great question. Why don't we toss that to Dave? He can answer the bat guano mining question for us. Dave?
Oh, that is a great question. And they used to mine it from about 1903 to 1923, and it was used for fertilizer over in the citrus groves over in California. But after this became a national monument, they really don't mine it here anymore. And they've come up with better chemical fertilizers that are easier to use than bat guano. So back to you, Marjorie. I guess you got to tell me.
Thank you, Ray. And now we have Brooks from Kansas. Go ahead, Brooks.
Okay. How many different touring areas are there in Carlsbad Caverns?
How many different touring areas? Are you meaning ranger-led tours?
Like the big room, the natural areas, those put together.
Okay. Paula, would you mind answering that one for us?
No, not at all. We have 3 different trails here in this cave, which are the natural entrance, the big room, and the King's Palace. And we have a couple other caves, like, what's that one that's out, the Slaughter
Canyon Cave.
We have Slaughter Canyon Cave, we have Spider Cave, and another one here that we do is Hall of the White Giant. So we do a number of different tours. One of them is right there where Marjorie's standing, and another is the one area you explore in the game. So left-hand tunnel and lower cave also. Back to you in left-hand tunnel.
Thank you, Brooks. And now we go to the discussion forum with Ada and Caitlin at the natural entrance.
Hey, girls.
Hi, we're down at the natural entrance. I'm Caitlin Lynn from Count Elementary School in Muncie, Indiana. And I'm Ada Kirby from Mitchell Elementary School in Muncie, Indiana. Okay, one of the questions that we've gotten is, what is the tallest stalagmite in the cave? And the tallest stalagmite is approximately 60 feet tall. And another question we had was, what is the main species of bats in the cave? And the main species is a Mexican freetail. Back to you, Margie.
Thanks, girls. We now want to take it to our live satellite feed from Boston. Jeff, it's up to you.
Hey, Marjorie, thank you so much. We are so excited to be here in Boston. You've thrown it to us all the way from out west to all the way out east. And I'm here today with students from Warren Prescott Elementary School here in Boston, and one of their classmates is joining me right now. Tell me your name.
Alondra.
Alondra, and what grade are you in?
4th.
4th grade. Now, Alondra, I'm actually from the Baseball Hall of Fame, but I was asked to be on today's program, and I thought when I heard about this, it was going to be all about parks and bats, but it's not that kind of parks and bats, is it?
No.
No? What kind of parks and bats is it about, Alondra?
Well, it's about national parks.
National parks, and are there bats in this particular national park?
Yes.
So that must be why I was confused. Well, anyway, we're today here at the Charlestown Navy Yard, which is right here in Boston. You can probably see over my shoulder, it's the home of the famous USS Constitution. It's one of 14 points on Boston's legendary Freedom Trail, a part of the National Park Service. So we're coming from one national park out in Carlsbad, New Mexico, to this national park here in Boston. And as Alondra said, we're joined by her classmates from Warren Prescott Elementary School. Are you guys excited? Excited to be here? Okay, you're going to be doing all of these great activities. And in addition to the students who are here with us today, there's also some other very special guests. I'm going to step over here. Excuse me, Alondra. Thank you for joining me. We're going to go right over here to Dr. Joanne Gora. Dr. Gora, it's a pleasure to have you on today's program. You work with students every day at Ball State University, but these students are a little bit different.
This is a different kind of day for me, Jeff. I am so excited that Ball State University is able to bring students from all over the world to the Carlsbad Caverns. And I love the title of this electronic field trip, A Journey Through Nature's Plumbing System. What a great opportunity to show off one of the wonderful national parks here in the U.S. And what a great opportunity for students to really learn.
Okay, I understand that the students are going to be working on some activities. They already have some questions ready to go, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good.
And let you go ahead and begin interacting with the students.
Well, we have some interesting questions, I know, right here at this table. So does anybody here have a question that you'd like to ask?
Are there just bats in the caves?
Frank, you want to say that again?
Are there just bats in the caves?
Did you say it one more time, Frank? Marjorie, can you hear us?
Are there just bats in the caves?
Marjorie, that's a great question. Would you like to answer that?
You bet. There are bats in the cave. We have 16 species of bats that are found in Carlsbad Caverns National Park. Most people are most familiar with the Mexican freetail, which has a huge emergence in the summertime. About 400,000 would emerge in the evening for their summer feed in the evening. Any other questions from Boston?
Well, let's see. There's an excited group of students over here at this table. Are there any questions here? Lisa's got a question. Go ahead, Lisa.
How is the stalactite in Carlsbad Caverns formed?
Great question, Lisa. How are the stalactites formed in Carlsbad Caverns?
Thanks for your question, Lisa. Let's take that one to Dave. Dave, could you help us out?
Oh, I'm sure we can, and let's go ahead, KJ. What do you do with that one?
Stalactites are formed when water from the surface, rain, snow, any water comes down through the cracks of the limestone and drips very slowly, and it takes over tons of years to form stalactites, but when water drips down very slowly, it starts to form a stalactite. Good question. Back to you, Marjorie.
Thanks, KJ. I think we're taking it back to Boston for another question.
Okay, Marjorie, thank you very much. We're back here now with Fran Manella. Fran, you're the director of the National Park Service. Must make you awfully proud to have two of your parks actually featured on today's program.
Oh, Jeff, we are so proud, and to be here during National Park Week. Does everybody know it's National Park Week? Yes. And it's a great opportunity to have not only Ball State and, of course, yourself from the Baseball Hall of Fame,
Great to be here.
but also a National Park Foundation and others making this happen for us today. To be able to have, 36 million youngsters and community people joining with us. But we are so proud. And again, as you've indicated, we're right here at the USS Constitution, known as Old Ironsides. And what war was it? Anybody know? What war did USS Constitution? Yes. No, it was, well, yes, the Revolutionary, but it's called also the War of 1812. So we are just so proud again to have everybody here and to be in Carlsbad. Carlsbad is the first park I ever visited as a child. So I'm so pleased about having that with us. With that, I'm just so pleased, Jeff, again, for everyone to be here during National Park Week and be a part of this great historical experience to have so many people joining our parks.
Fran, you were a teacher at one time, is that right?
Absolutely. I was a school teacher, and I taught for about 7 years in the state of Connecticut, and I love teaching. But it led me on to be able to move into being a National Park Service director. So,
well, there's going to be a lot of learning here today, Fran. We're going to go back now to Carlsbad Caverns out in New Mexico. Marjorie, back to you.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Director Manella. Our next segment that we want to talk about is how the cave was formed. So we're going to lead you on into some more learning.
We're about to learn more about the caves here in Carlsbad Caverns, how they were created. These caves are different from most other caves in the world because the size of the rooms are gigantic. How gigantic? Well,
let's talk about the big room, which is over 8 acres by itself. There are 6 football fields inside one room, and that's not even the start of it all. There is over 100 known caves in this one park, some with tiny rooms and some with huge rooms. Let's learn more.
All right, well, there's different steps to take to make a cave. Let's talk about the first one. It has to do with this. What is this?
This here is limestone.
Well, how did it form? Where did it come from?
Well, this whole area used to be a gigantic sea. And in the sea was a reef.
A sea? Now this is the desert. When was this possibly a sea?
This was a sea before the dinosaurs.
Oh, so a long time ago.
Yeah, very long
time
ago.
So there was a sea and there was a reef in the sea. Now I've been snorkeling in a coral reef. Is that the kind of reef it was?
No, this reef had more of sponges and algae and shell-like creatures.
And we know that because, like, what are these things in the rock?
These here are fossils.
Oh, all kinds of fossils tell us what kind of sea was here and what creatures were here. Well, how did you go from having a reef to having a rock?
Well, this whole reef, it dried up and then it buried underground and it started to form this limestone.
Okay, but the limestone now isn't buried. You see it everywhere around here. How'd that happen?
Well, I'm not completely sure. Do you know?
Well, I know somewhat about it, and I bet what happened is when there was a sea here, this sea was salt water. And when the water evaporated, what were you left with?
The rock.
And the salt.
Yeah.
And if you could imagine this being all covered with salt, let's say I had a bowl with the rock and salt in it and I poured water on it. What would happen to the salt?
The salt will dissolve.
And what about the rock?
It'll stay there.
Right. So you end up with just having the rock left behind. A long time ago, this pushed up, and when that happened, the erosion caused the salt to go away and left the rock behind, this rock we now call the Guadalupe Mountains. So, okay, and now Dave's going to continue the story.
Okay, so once that limestone was here, cracks formed in that limestone and fresh water from either rain or snowmelt was able to penetrate down into that ancient reef, and it came to a point of saturation, something that we would call the water table. Then something else started happening too. What?
So after the coral reef and stuff, all the animals and stuff started to die, their minerals and their bones and their body started to like break off and go mix into the earth.
And it left mass quantities of what?
Of like minerals and
oils and gases. Okay, and once those oil and gases were there, then what started happening?
The microbes in the oil and the microbes started like liking the oil and gas and started eating it, and then
yeah, what they do is if you eat something, what happens afterwards? They poop.
After it ate it,
they poop, and then what happens when they poop? What's that? Hydrogen
sulfide, which then mixes in with the water and makes sulfuric acid.
And then sulfuric acid starts to dissolve away,
sulfuric
a cave passageway like we're in.
Starts to dissolve the limestone, which then starts to make a cave.
And this is something that you guys can do in your classrooms, and what I have here is vinegar, and we're going to pretend that this is sulfuric acid, and if we put rocks inside of this, so Noah's got a rock, he's going to put that in. I hope you guys can see this at home.
And be looking at it and listen to it and feel it and see if you can see the difference of...
And that rock that Noah just put in, what's happening? Not much. There's nothing really going on, and that's actually sandstone. Let's try
Now
putting
this-
some limestone in.
This is limestone, so it should start dissolving. Okay.
Let's put that in there.
And it's bubbling up. And why it's doing that is because limestone, vinegar is a acid, but it's not as strong as sulfuric acid. But it'll do the same aspect as sulfuric acid would.
And I don't know if you guys can hear this or not, but we are seeing it just bubbling up big time, and you can actually hear it bubbling up. So at one time, people thought that this cave was formed by a river. There would have been a river flowing through here.
Yeah, they actually used to, like, before they found out there wasn't a river, they would bring inflatable rafts so that if they found the river, they could just float down, like, out of the exit, but that never happened because there wasn't water.
But there really never was a river, and why?
No, there wasn't a river, like, in another cave called Mammoth Cave. The reason that formed was by a river flowing through, and this didn't form by a river, it formed by sulfuric acid and hydrogen sulfide.
How do we know it was sulfuric acid that formed it?
Because there was hydrogen.
What's this stuff?
Oh, this is called gypsum, and how it formed was when sulfuric acid came, all this was left, and if there was a river, this wouldn't be here.
Yeah, if water drips on this stuff, and we see it all through the cave, there's not as much as there used to be, but if water drips on it, what happens to this stuff?
It gets eaten away and stuff.
It dissolves. So if a river came through here, what would happen to that?
It would be wiped out.
We wouldn't even see that anymore. So this was the end piece of the puzzle that led to the whole theory of why we're standing inside of the largest underground room that we know of in the U.S. So back to you, Marjorie and Mason.
Thanks, guys. The whole cave process is pretty interesting and pretty amazing, don't you think, Mason?
Yeah.
I tell you what, let's take some questions from some phone callers. We've got one, Nathan from Alaska. Go ahead, Nathan.
I was wondering, are the caves still getting bigger today?
Good question. Are the caves still getting bigger? Why don't we take it to Paul?
Yeah.
Paul, can you do that one for us?
I think we can answer that question. What do you think? Do you think caves are still being formed today?
No, I don't.
Well, that's true. The mixing that Dave talked about is between that fresh water and the hydrogen sulfide rich water that made all these caves has now actually been moved away from here because of the uplift of the mountains. So now that mixing is still going on, but it's not in limestone and it's not forming caves anymore. That's a very good question. Back to you, Marjorie.
Thank you, Nathan. And now we're going to go to Alana from Texas. Alana.
Sorry, Lana, go ahead.
Cave and Slaughter Canyon get their names from?
Could you repeat that one more time?
Where did Slaughter Cave and Slaughter Canyon get their names from?
I'll tell you what, let's let Paula do that one.
Yeah, Paula.
Paula, could you answer that one for us?
Well, how about Elia? Do you know why it's called Slaughter Canyon?
Not really, do you?
I do. It sounds like it'd be creepy, but it's actually just the name of a rancher that had his ranch outside the canyon, so the whole canyon got his family name, Slaughter Canyon. And the cave's simply named after the canyon, Slaughter Canyon Cave. For people that visited here maybe 20 years ago or more, you might know the same cave as New Cave. And as new caves were found, that was too confusing. So today, we call it Slaughter Canyon Cave. Back to you, Marjorie.
Thanks, Paula and Elia. Thank you for your question, Lana. Now let's go to Hannah from Indiana. Hannah?
How tall is the tallest part of the cave?
How tall is the tallest part of the cave? You want to take it?
No, I think Dave can answer that one.
All right, Dave?
I think we can answer this one. You want to try?
It's 25.
225 foot tall.
225 feet tall, and
it's at the top of the cross in the back of the
cave. It's in the back of the cave and like at the top of the cross and stuff, yeah.
So really, really tall. Fantastic question. Back to you, Marjorie.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. And now we have Liam from Illinois. Go ahead, Liam. Liam, go ahead with your question.
Huh?
Go ahead.
How big can the stalagmites and the stalactites get? How big can stalagmites and stalactites get?
How big can they get? That's a good question. Why don't we take that to Paul? Paul?
Thanks, Marjorie. Do you know how tall some of these formations can get? What are the biggest ones you've seen here?
I thought the Rock of Ages was really big.
Right. Some of the ones in Carlsbad Cavern and inside the park are over 100 feet tall. In fact, the largest ones in the world can actually be over 200 feet tall. And those are usually found in caves that are actually even much bigger than Carlsbad, like in Borneo. But here at Carlsbad, 50 or 60 feet is about the largest that we've got. Back to you, Marjorie.
Thank you, Liam. Now we're going to go with Alexis with at Indiana.
That's a tongue twister.
Yeah. Alexis? Go ahead, Alexis. What's your question?
How big is the biggest cave? Where is it located?
How big is the biggest cave? Where is it located? Dave, could you answer that one for us?
Usually called Good Luck Cave.
Good Luck.
Yeah, I think it's in Indonesia, and like it's called the Good Luck Cave.
Good Luck Cave. And inside of that cave, it's the Sarawak Chamber, and that's the largest room that we know of on the planet. So, fantastic answer. Back to you, Marjorie.
Thank you, Alexia. And now we're going to go to the discussion forum with Caitlin and Ada at the natural entrance.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hi. We have some of the questions on here. Here's one. Has there ever been people living in Carlsbad? There's no evidence of people ever living in Carlsbad, but there has been Native Americans in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, well, I had a question that said, how much does a Mexican free-tailed weigh? Well, they weigh about less than half an ounce. Back to you, Marjorie.
Thanks, you two.
Now we're going to go to Boston with Jeff.
Okay, thanks. Welcome back to Boston. I'm here with Lucy, Danielle, Brandy, Mary, and Lucy 2. I got Lucy 1, Lucy 2. They're all busy pouring vinegar on pieces of limestone. And Joanne, we're going to go back to you at your table because I understand that you've got some questions from students.
I do. I have a lot of students here with questions. Bridget, would you like to ask your question?
Is there a place called Mirror Lake in the caverns?
Marjorie, do you have an answer to that? Is there a place called Mirror Lake in the caverns?
Yes, there is a place called Mirror Lake. They'll have like a sign, and you can look down in the lake, and you can see the sign and see what it says.
It's found in the big room, so if ever you come visit, be sure to check it out. Paul, now to you.
All right, well, this is the first of the Choose Your Own Adventure. What you did is those people who participated in level 1 were able to answer a bunch of questions and basically choose what adventure Haley and I got to take. So in this first segment, what were our choices?
Our choices were how do you survey?
Take a tour of Slaughter Canyon Cave.
And what other caves are part of Carlsbad Caverns?
All right, well, let's look at the poll and see which one won. Which one did you choose?
I choose take a tour of Slaughter Canyon. Is that what you chose?
That is, and it looks like that's what most people took. So why don't we get our stuff together? We've got a long hike to go up to the cave, and let's go check it out.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, we're at the trailhead to Slaughter Canyon Cave, which is actually a half-mile hike where we gain more than 500 feet of elevation. It's a very rough hike, so do you have what we need?
Yes, the first thing we need is plenty of water.
That's true. Because we're in a desert, we need at least 1 liter of water per person, and it's best to have at least 2 liters. Is there anything else?
Yes, we need some hiking boots and a good flashlight.
That's right. You want to have a good, dependable flashlight with plenty of spare batteries, and in fact, the general rule is we want to have at least 3 different lights for the cave. We also need those heavy-duty hiking boots because of the hike up to the cave, and inside the cave, the trails are very, very steep and slippery. How are we going to show people what's inside?
It's way too dark to take a video camera, so I have a little portable camera to show the public.
Excellent. Well, let's go. Well, we got some really great stuff, didn't we?
Yeah, check this out.
This is a shot of the entrance to Slaughter Canyon from inside the cave. Look how small the entrance looks.
This is some trash that miners left in the cave more than 50 years ago.
That's right. Anything more than 50 years old found in the cave is considered historic, and we don't want to remove it. See those little black things? Those are all bat bones.
We saw lots of those.
Bats don't call Slaughter Canyon home anymore because the bat guano they left on the ground grew to touch the ceiling at some points in the cave.
That's a lot of guano.
This is a very big stalagmite called the Klansman, which was created from calcite deposit. It stands about 20 feet tall.
And here is a cool close-up of it. It looks mean.
This is one of the world's tallest columns. Do you know what it's called, Haley?
The monarch, right?
That's right, and the monarch is made of limestone and stands 89 feet tall inside the cave. Whoops, I forgot to turn the flash on my camera.
This is a shot of my favorite formation inside the cave. It's called the Christmas tree.
Wow, those were some great shots that you took.
Yeah, I had a lot of practice on the webcam.
Well, we still have a show to do, so why don't we get back to it? Well, that was a lot of fun, wasn't it, Haley?
Yes, it was.
Oh, well, we got a chance to look at what kind of impacts humans can have on the cave. One of the interesting things about the caves here in the Guadalupe Mountains is that it's really hard to know that there's these big holes under the ground because you've got such a different view on the surface. There's no indication. Now we're going to go to Mason, who's having a little bit of an adventure up on the surface and going to tell us a bunch more about the desert.
Okay, let's play a little game of hide and go seek. There's a giant cave hiding around here somewhere. Let's see if you can find it. Hidden beneath this hard desert ground are the caves that made up Carlsbad Caverns. The plants that have lived out here have adapted to the dry desert environment. You'll find a wide variety of lizards out here that have adapted to not having much water. Plus, there are birds, rats, bats, lots of insects, and much more. Want to see one of the coolest creatures that call this desert home? We've got one for you. Take a look.
Thank you, Mason, for that little tour of the desert. We are out here outside, and today we have a special guest. Max is here from Living Desert Zoo and Gardens, a state park in Carlsbad, and he has a friend that he calls Red. Tell us about Red.
Thanks, Paula. This is a corn snake, and this guy here is not actually found in this area, but he does have a family member that's found around these areas, but he's a different color.
Oh yeah, what color is the one that's native to here?
He's more of a grayish, sometimes brown, sometimes a dark gray. He's gonna want to match his surroundings.
What's that called when they match the surroundings?
It is called camouflage.
Camouflage, right. Now, is it like we're holding Red here, but I think he's used to it. Should the kids out there be trying to hold snakes all the time?
No, not unless they're with an adult and they actually know what they're doing. Yeah, because they can bite you, but Red here, he's actually worked with quite often, so he's pretty used to being handled.
Okay. The general rule is you never want to handle any wild animal. And what about those other adaptations? Like, he seems pretty adapted to the desert. Like, what does a snake do to make a living out here?
Basically, during the summertime, these guys are going to stay in a nice, cool area, kind of like the cave here. They're gonna go where it's a constant cool temperature, and they'll come out in late nights when it starts cooling down. But they're gonna try to stay out of the heat because it gets hot around here.
Yeah, I bet that's the same way at the zoo. You don't want to be out working in the zoo in the middle of the hot day.
Oh yeah.
Now, there are also plants that try to have adapted to what they have here too. There's very little water. It can be very hot. So some of the plants here have branches that point up so they can collect water. Some of them have very vast the root systems, and a lot of them have just found ways to protect what water they have. Do you know how they protect their water?
Yes, they have these leaves that most plants have smaller leaves, and that way they lose less water, and whenever the water comes, they absorb more water.
And what about if something wants to eat them?
No, they got the spines to protect them.
Right. A lot of thorns and spines, and boy, I bet even Mason discovered some of those thorns as he was hiking around in the desert. So there's a lot of interesting animals and great plants around here, and we hope those of you from areas that don't have deserts, you take a look. It's a great place, and there's a lot to learn here. So on to you.
Thanks, Paula. Mason learned firsthand about some of those pokey plants, didn't you, Mason?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Let's take a call. We have Casey from Alaska. Go ahead, Casey.
How many people have gotten lost in the cave?
Ooh, how many people have gotten lost in the cave? Let me toss that back to Dave. Dave?
Oh, that's a great question. One of you guys want to answer?
I'll answer.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Noah.
well, as far as we know, no one has actually gotten lost in the cave.
Fantastic. So back to you, Marjorie.
Thank you. Let's take another call. We have Devin from Indiana. Devin? Go ahead, Devin, with your question.
question is, are there any colors in the stalagmites or stalactites?
Ooh, that's a great question. Mason, do you remember the answer to that?
Yeah, there are some colors to them, and they get them
because of the minerals.
Yeah, the minerals that go by, they can get colors from the minerals going by, and they get hit by the minerals, and then they'll get colors.
Good job. Thanks, Devin. Now we have a call, Brandon from Maine. Go ahead, Brandon.
Brandon, go ahead.
How are the bat and other animals in Carlsbad helpful to mankind?
Ooh, great. Let's take that one to Paula. Paula, question about bats.
All right, that is a good question. And I know Alaya knows why bats are good for us. What is that?
Well, the bats in this area, they're all insect eaters, so they get rid of a lot of insects, and they like to pollinate and fertilize the flowers, but we'll get a little bit more into that later.
Yeah, and in some parts of the world, most of the bats eat fruit, and in doing that, they can spread the seeds around. So bats do a lot of good stuff. In terms of other kinds of animals in the cave, the main thing that's sort of an animal are microbes like bacteria. And there's all kind of research, and maybe there'll be even cures for diseases that we'll figure out from those microbes. Back to you, Marjorie.
Thanks, Paula.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. Now we have a caller, Daniel from Indiana. Go ahead, Daniel.
Are there any fish in Mirror Lake?
Are there fish in Mirror Lake? You want to get it?
No, I don't know. There are no fish in the lake.
Nope, no fish. Thanks for your question, though.
But there are insects, aren't there?
And we do have insects that live in the cave. Yeah, various little critters might venture into the water, little worms and things.
Thank you, Daniel, for your question. Now we have Mark from Alaska. Go ahead, Mark.
I know caves are decaying each year, but how long will the caves get before they collapse totally?
Wow, that's a complicated question. I tell you what. Paul?
Yeah, I think we can go to Paul.
Okay, Paul, it's yours.
Well, I'll do my best to answer that question. A lot of it actually depends on surface erosion as far as how long a cave will actually stay open as a cave. Basically, once you have the opening, the cave is either trying to fill itself up with cave formations, and in some places roof collapse. And the roof collapse is really dependent on how much surface erosion is going on. So if you're in an area where there's a lot of rainfall, you're going to actually dissolve a lot more of the limestone, you're going to cause more collapse and things like that. So the caves will be more short-lived. Lava tubes are one of the easiest to destroy caves, and that's why you don't find lava tubes that are very, very old. So it really depends on where you are and what type of a cave it is as far as how long the cave will actually stay open and last. That's a very, very good question. If you want more details, you can actually put that question on the discussion forum, and we'll try to get you more details on that. Back to you, Marjorie.
Thanks,
okay,
Paul.
Thank you, Mark. Now we're going to go to the discussion forum with Caitlin and Ada at the natural entrance.
Hi, guys.
Hey, girls.
Hi. Okay, one of the questions that we've gotten is, what sorts of animals are in the desert? Well, there are a lot of species in the desert. Some kinds of species are kangaroo rats, jackrabbits, and mule deer.
Yeah, well, a question I got was that how long the cave has been here. It has been here twice as long as the dinosaurs. Back to you, Marjorie.
Thanks, girls. Now,
Okay, now it's time to go to Boston with Jeff.
Jeff, it's all yours.
Okay, Marjorie, thank you. Welcome back to Boston. I'm here with Kimberly, Mather, Keegan, and John, and we're sitting here at our table trying to figure out what these sugar cubes are for. We expect that's going to come up later in the program, but we think Kimberly may have eaten one of hers. We're not quite certain. We're trying to get to the bottom of that, but for now, let's go back over to Fran because she's got some questions at her table.
Thank you, Jeff. Again, thank you so much. And Kiana for us today. Kiana, what is a question that you have for Marjorie and all the folks back at Carlsbad?
Who named all the parts of the cave?
That is who named, Marjorie, all the parts of the cave. Anyway, we go to you, Marjorie.
Thanks. Mason, you want to try a shot?
I know Jim White did a lot of it, but I'm not completely sure if he did all of it.
Jim White gets credit for a lot of stuff. Various folks who have explored give their own kinds of names, but Jim White gets credit for a lot of them. Okay, our next segment will be talking about the decorations of the cave. We learned how the cave was formed. Now let's hear about the decorations.
Visiting the Carlsbad Caverns would probably be cool if there were just giant rooms all buried beneath the ground. But what makes it even cooler are all the decorations growing, hanging, twisting, and shaping the walls of the caves.
And if you watch real close, you can actually see the formations growing. Okay, I'm kidding. These formations take a really long time to grow. But every time you hear a drip in this cave, you know the process is still happening. Let's learn more.
All right, so we talked a little bit earlier about how this room formed, why we've got a cave. But the question I have for you, Noah, is how did the calcite that makes up all these formations get down in here into the cave?
Okay, well, rain or whatever will go through the earth, and like it'll get the minerals and things left behind from the old ocean, and as it goes down, it'll eat away at the limestone until it gets an oxygen-filled room, and then it'll deposit and harden.
Okay, cool.
If you go to the Ball State website, you will find the directions and things that you need to do a project to make a stalactite out of very little things. It's being shown on the screen right now. Go to the Ball State website and you will find more information. Let's toss it over to Paul and Haley.
All right, well, thank you very much. We're back at King's Palace. We heard a little bit about how cave formations are actually made. Now we're going to actually take a look at some cave formations close up, and it looks like you've got something to show us.
Yes, I do. This is a soda straw. It is a pencil-thin, hollow stalactite. And it actually, most stalactites start out with a soda straw. If you were to chop some of these stalactites down, you would see a ring of where the soda straw started out, and how it gets to be so big is the bottom clogs up and it just keeps on growing.
Yes, that's right. And you can actually see in this example where the original soda straw actually was. What happens, like you said, it clogs up, and then eventually the water just starts flowing out of the sides and becomes bigger and bigger. Normally we wouldn't be holding any cave formations. Where do you think that these particular ones came from?
I think that it was from people wanting to take home a souvenir.
That's right, that's right. We do actually get quite a bit of damage every year by people actually reaching out and breaking cave formations. Why is that not a good idea?
Because if everyone would break one off and everything, we'd have none left to show, and it's just not good for the cave.
That's right, and that's why the area that we're actually standing in is now just a ranger guided tour, because we were getting a lot of damage. Most visitors prefer to take home just nice souvenirs, postcards, things from the gift shop, but unfortunately we do still have some damage. These are some small cave formations. We're now going to throw it back to Dave, who's going to talk about some of the really big versions of these cave formations. Dave?
Thanks, Paul. We're standing inside of Carlsbad Caverns, and as far as we know, this is the largest underground room that we know of, and that's what it's famous for, but we also have some fantastic, just giant formations. Noah, you want to talk about some of that?
Yep, over here we have the twin domes, and they are really big. And we also have the giant dome, which is like 58 feet high, and you can see above them that they don't have any stalactites above them. That's because the water that comes really fast into the cave will form the stalagmites because it doesn't have time to form the stalactites. And the slow water moving in will form the stalactites.
Well, no, that's really cool. But behind me, we have the Rock of Ages, and the Rock of Ages is just a big column, which is a stalactite and a stalagmite that forms, that connects. And how that does that is, in order to make a stalactite, the water's got to be dripping very slow, but in order to make a stalagmite, the water's got to be dripping very fast. So the speed of the water drips, the speed of the water dripping just varies, like from slow to fast, off and on. And when it does that, the stalagmites get bigger, and so do the stalactites. And when they connect, it makes a column. And the other formation is called a drapery, and a drapery is?
It's when instead of just water just dropping straight down, it'll like actually run down the wall of the ceiling of the cave and forms it kind of looks like a drape.
Yeah, like on
And what it is just like it's like a stalactite, and it does the same thing as a stalactite, but the only difference is it's like a flat one that's like really wide and really big and flat. It's pretty much is what a drapery is.
Are there other names for draperies? You guys know any other names?
Cave bacon?
Cave bacon. That's really cool. And
why it's called cave bacon is because when you put a flashlight or something on it, it looks wavy like bacon. Now let's toss it over to Paul and Haley.
All right, well, thanks, guys. It looks like it's time for us to do another adventure, and you guys got to pick what adventure we get to take this time around. What were our choices this time?
This time we had how do you helictites form?
Explore Lechuguilla Cave.
And how do you name formations?
All right, well, which one did you pick?
I personally chose Explore Lechuguilla Cave.
Well, it looks like that one was the winner. So we've got a lot of technical gear to get together. Why don't we put that up and head towards the cave?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, well, now we've got our gear ready to go down into Lechuguilla Cave. That cave takes a lot of specialized equipment. This is a harness that we actually use to attach ourselves to the rope to go down into the cave. And like you're wearing and I've got here, we need to have hard hats and lights on that. And I see you've got your knee pads so that you're prepared to do some crawling. Now, Lechuguilla Cave is one of the technical caves in the park. It's actually open only to researchers, and because of that, we don't really have any video footage because we don't allow a lot of camera crews to go in there. You basically start off with about a 70-foot pit drop, which is why we need our harnesses, and you start getting to some of the really pretty rooms in the cave. One of the first ones we get to is actually Lake Labarge, which is over 70 feet wide, and it's a fairly shallow pool, but the water is crystal clear. You go a little bit further and you get to what's the most spectacular room in the cave. It's actually the most photographed room, which is the Chandelier Ballroom. And what there is in the Chandelier Ballroom are these giant crystals of gypsum. There's actually quite a few really large rooms, and you actually get to some formations that look a lot like what we see in Carlsbad. Some of the smaller things you see are actually needles of aragonite, which are very, very delicate crystals that are made of calcium carbonate.
Lechuguilla Cave has been pushed to a depth of 1,567 feet by explorers and scientists. It is the deepest limestone cave and is fourth in length of all caves and found in the United States.
So you want to get back to the show?
Yeah, we better.
Okay. Wow, that was a whole lot of work. Did you have a good time?
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking right now that we probably have some questions from people out there. So let's throw it back to Marjorie and see if she's got some more questions and answers.
Thanks, Paul and Haley. We've got a question from Xander, who's from Florida. Go ahead, Xander, with your question.
Xander, go ahead. Xander from Florida, is anybody there? Okay, we're gonna move on now. We have Quinn from Missouri. Go ahead, Quinn.
I was wondering, why were the miners in the caves? What were they mining?
Ooh, good question. Mason?
They were mining guano, or otherwise known as bat poop, but they were mining it because in California, they would use it for their their citrus and like the apples and oranges and stuff like that for fruit.
The guano was mined in the early part of the 1900s, and once the area became a national monument and then a national park, no guano mining went on. Thanks for your question. Let's go to Quinn from Missouri. Quinn?
No, that was just Quinn.
Oh, sorry. Leah from Indiana. Leah? Go ahead, Leah.
What are the odds of being hurt by an animal living in a cave?
What are the odds of being hurt by an animal in the cave? Let's take that to Paula. Paula?
Well, Alaya, what do you think? What are the odds you're going to get hurt by an animal in the cave?
No, not really that big. Bats don't hurt anything. Don't hurt people. Doesn't hurt people.
Yeah, it's basically comes down to if you're being safe and you're not bothering the animals, they won't bother you. So it's kind of like any kind of a hike or anything like that. But the bats and other animals don't want to hurt anybody. Back to you, Marjorie.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Leah. Now we're going to go to Brandon from Florida. Go ahead, Brandon.
What is the average temperature in the cave?
It is 58 degrees in the cave, and they try to keep it at that.
It's 58 degrees. Great question. Thank you. Shauna from Indiana. Go ahead.
My question is, how many tourists visit daily?
Ooh, how many tourists visit
That's
daily?
Isn't it?
Daily, it depends on the season. Our busy season is in the summer. Yearly, we have about 500,000, which is 500,000. We have a little less than that, actually. If you want to know exact numbers, email that into the discussion forum, and they can tell you exactly what our daily visitation is. Thanks for your question.
Now I have Madeline from Ohio. Go ahead, Madeline. Madeline, what's your question?
Madeline from Ohio, are you there?
Okay, it's time to move on now. We need to go to the discussion forum with Caitlin and Ada at the natural entrance.
Hey, one of the questions that we've been getting is, what is the most common kind of speleothem found in the cave? Well, it's the stalactite. That's the most common found. It's where they hang off the ceiling. C for ceiling.
Well, the question I got was, how did the whale's mouth get its name? Well, the draperies look like the teeth, and the top, it's formed like a whale's mouth, and the draperies look like the teeth. Back to you, Marjorie.
Thanks, girls. Now we want to go back to Boston, where we have Jeff. Jeff, go ahead.
Camera one's.
Hey, Marjorie, welcome back. We're still trying to solve the mystery of the missing sugar cube, right, Kimberly? Haven't found it yet, but I have a feeling that's coming up later in the program. We've been busy flattening our Play-Doh, but for now, my fellow table mate here, Keegan, has a question. Keegan, you want to go ahead and ask your question?
My question is, how many animals have died from the pollution from car oil or people?
How many animals have died from pollution? That sounds like an excellent question for us to go back to Carlsbad. Marjorie, did you pick that one up?
I did. That's a fantastic question. Let's take that one to Paul, see if he can help you out on that one. Paul?
Could you repeat the question for us?
How many animals have killed by or have died because of the pollution from people and cars?
Very few large animals have actually died inside the cave because of the pollution. The pollution is actually in such small amounts that it mostly affects the things like the cave microbes, the cave crickets, and things like that. The largest impact that we actually have is people bringing trash and stuff into the cave, and that actually attracts animals in, and when that attracts the animals in, they sometimes can't get back out and they actually starve down in the cave. So it's more of a direct pollution than the stuff that leaks in from the surface. But that's a very, very good question. Back to you, Marjorie.
Thanks. We're going to toss it back to Jeff. Jeff, are you there? All right, I guess not. We're going to toss it to the next segment, which we just learned about the cave decorations. Now we want to learn about the... You want to go, Mason?
About the cave and the inhabitants.
Tell me if this sounds fun. You found a big hole in the ground. You can't see all the way inside. You've got a short ladder that you made from scratch, and the only light source you have is an old coffee can with some fuel and a wick. Want to go inside?
No, you'd have to be crazy to do something like that. But of course, someone who's crazy enough or brave enough to actually go exploring deep in the cave, you can judge if that would be a good idea or not. Let's learn more.
All right, well, we want to talk about what's lived in the cave. What mammal has been there the longest, Elia?
The bats.
The bats? What kind of bats do we have here?
Well, our most common species is the Mexican free-tail.
Well, Elia, how long have they been here?
Well, they've been here for hundreds of thousands of years.
Oh, wow. What makes this cave such a great place to live?
Well, for one thing, it's cool, and the weather, like rain, snow, this desert gets, they're safe from that, and they're safe from any predators because they're up high on the ceiling.
Yeah, great. A cave is a great place to hang out. Now, one of the things we do like to explain, though, is this species, the Mexican freetail, likes to live in big groups, but there are other bats, even here in the park, that like to live alone or with just one or two other bats. So they don't all live in the large groups, and some live in caves, some live in trees and such. Now, the big thing we also want to get across has to do with if bats are scary. Are you afraid of bats?
Bats won't hurt you.
Now, what good is a bat, though?
They eat all the insects around you. They pollinate flowers. They spread seeds around from fruits.
That's right. They do a lot of good stuff for us. And there are bats in all 50 states, so wherever you are, there are bats. Now, one of the things the bats did here is flying out. They attracted people. We know that people have known about this cave for thousands of years. We find pictographs here, grinding stones, and other things. But Eli is going to tell us more about the guy who did a lot of that early exploration. Go ahead.
The first known person to extensively explore the cave was Jim White. And he went down into this cave. It was pitch black. He only had a lantern just like this one, and a ladder he made. There's no paved trails, no lighting, no direction of where to go, really.
Wow. Do you remember how old he was when he first came in?
Well, we think whenever he first came into the cave in 1898, he was 16 years old.
Wow. Now, would you have joined Jim White on that kind of an example, on a rickety ladder and this kind of a lantern?
No, I wouldn't.
It's a lot different. One of the things that makes it easier, of course, today is we do have paved trails, and one of the easiest things is after all your hiking, you get to come out by elevator. So if you want to know more about the kinds of adventures you can have here, please go to the website. We'll be glad to tell you more. At this point, we're going to pass it on back.
Thanks, Paula and Elia. This is the Your Turn segment of the show where we want you and your classrooms to be doing the same thing with us. This is an activity to kind of show you how pollution enters the cave and how it really does contaminate things. You should have a 2-liter bottle. You should have some rocks and sand. Everybody got that stuff? You should also have some colored water or something that's going to represent some pollutants. We've already started our demonstration, so we've got some sand, some rocks. I tell you what, Connor, would you put some more stuff in there? Connor's going to put some sand. Roselle?
Okay, that's good.
Connor, okay, so we put sand and rocks. Why? Why are we doing this? What does the rock and sand represent?
The layers of the cave.
That's exactly right. So this represents the layers below the surface. So think of that top layer of your bottle. Think of that as the surface, and everything is below the surface. You should have some white paper at the bottom of the bottle. What do you think that might represent, Roselle?
The white paper represents the cave.
Yeah, the white paper represents the cave. Now, we get lots of visitors here every year. We get about 500,000 folks. Connor, how does everybody get here?
By car or something with an engine.
Yeah, by car, bus, motorcycle, something with an engine. Well, everybody parks their car on that parking lot. Roselle, where is that parking lot located?
Right over the cave.
That's right, right over the cave. And then, Roselle, can you tell everybody what happens? What are those cars and stuff, what do they leak?
They leak brake fluid, gas, oil, any type of fluid.
Okay.
So
we've got some things to represent brake fluid, to represent oil. Guys, why don't you dump that stuff in our 2-liter bottle? Yep. Go ahead. So these will be those contaminants. And kind of remind everybody what those contaminants might be.
Like brake fluid or oil or...
Yeah, brake fluid, oil.
Okay.
In real life, you've got the rock and sand, which would help filter things. In our bottle, that same thing is going on. The rocks and sand would filter. But do you think they filter everything, Roselle?
No, they do not.
No, they don't. Our visual demonstration of this is to look at the bottom of the bottle. We put what color paper in there, Connor?
White.
White. Now, I want to show something. We'll lift it up. Do you think the bottom is going to still be white?
No.
No, why not, Roselle? What happens? What happens when all those contaminants seep down?
When it seeps down into the cave, it turns the pools green or yellow or blue, and it could also damage the stalactites, the stalagmites.
All right, we know we've got damage in the cave because we test our pools and we know that there are contaminants there. Well, we want folks to visit, right, Connor? So what should we do? Should we say nobody can come visit?
No.
No, so management has to really think about how can we protect the cave but still let folks come. All right, we want to go to the Choose Your Own Adventure, so let's take that segment right now.
It's now time for our third and unfortunately final adventure that we get to take. This time, what were our choices, Haley?
How does all that land get into the cave?
Why would anyone want to mine bat guano?
How important is the microbial forest?
All right, well, let's see the results of that. Which one do you think won?
I think, why would anyone want to mine bat guano?
Oh, looks like you were right. Well, and to go there, do you know what bat guano is?
Yes, it's bat poo.
That's right, and that can be pretty gross, can't it?
Yeah.
Well, we're not going to actually go in where the bats are, but if we were, we'd be wearing one of these. This is actually a respirator, and that's because the dust that would be kicked up from that bat guano actually contains a fungus that causes a lung disease. So in order to protect ourselves from that, we would wear this respirator. But since we're just going to go to where those bats come out, we don't need to wear this. I just wanted to show you what we would normally have. Let's go check out the natural entrance. Well, Haley, here we are at the natural entrance. Earlier in the show, we learned about the bats. Do you remember how many bats there were in the cave?
Yes, there's hundreds of thousands Mexican free-tailed bats.
Very, very good. And because there's all those Mexican free-tailed bats in there hanging out, they leave large piles of guano down in the cave. Do you remember anything about guano?
Yeah, when the bats came out, it smelled.
That's right, and that's because that guano is fresh guano. There's a difference between fresh guano and what we think of as old guano. Fresh guano is like a bunch of tiny little brown and black pellets that pile up very, very deep in the cave, whereas the older guano tends to look basically kind of like a tan sand. One of the interesting things about the bat guano is that it would help lead to the discovery of the majority of the cave because in the early days, more than 80 years ago, the guano was actually mined. Between 1903 and 1923, there were several companies that came in and mined the guano out. So why do you think people would have mined bat guano?
Because it can be used for fertilizer.
Yes, that's very good. The bat guano contains high levels of phosphorus and nitrogen, which are very, very good for helping plants grow. Can you think of who might have used that fertilizer?
The fruit farmers in California.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, that's true. Over that 20-year period of mining, over 100,000 tons of bat guano were actually shipped to the citrus fields of California.
How much is 100,000 tons of guano exactly?
Well, it's a lot. In fact, it's heavier than the Titanic. In fact, it's heavier than 2 Titanics.
Wow, that is a lot.
So Haley, you remember in our first Choose Your Own Adventure, we went up to Slaughter Canyon Cave?
Yes.
Well, remember that trench that we went through was actually where the miners had actually cut through the large pile of bat guano. Do you remember how tall that was?
Yes, it was at least 3 or 4 of me. I knew that smelled funny.
Well, that was a lot of fun. It's too bad that was our last adventure.
Yeah.
Who do you think we should talk to next?
Why don't we go ahead and give it to Marjorie. Marjorie, go ahead.
Thanks, Haley and Paul. We want to take it now to our live satellite in Boston, where we're going to learn about the upcoming electronic field trips for next year. Jeff?
Marjorie, thanks for coming back to us. The kids are having a wonderful time. We're doing all of these exciting experiments. They have shown how pollution affects the landscape out at Carlsbad as well as other places. But for now, we're going to go out to the deck of the USS Constitution because we want to hear all about some exciting electronic field trips that are planned for next year by Ball State University. This has certainly been a fun one, but there are a lot more to come.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm standing on the USS Constitution, the oldest commissioned warship in the world. You've heard this ship called Old Ironsides. They say that the wood of this ship is so strong that cannonballs actually bounced off of it during the War of 1812 with Great Britain. Now, we've seen 2 different national parks today, but I think it's a good time to tell you that next year, the Ball State University Electronic Field Trip Series will be partnering with the National Park Foundation for 3 different field trips. That's right, next year we'll be taking all of you to some very unique and interesting spots among the 388 national parks. First, in October, you'll visit Independence National Historic Park, birthplace of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And then in December, we'll take you to the Big Island of Hawaii to walk among the lava flows of an active volcano. And finally, in February, you'll see Manzanar National Historic Site, the site of a Japanese-American internment camp from World War II. Those will be some outstanding electronic field trips, but there's even more in store. Next April, take a quick trip around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to look at the science of speed. And to wrap up the series in May, travel to Alaska to see the art, the culture, and the history of Native Americans on the North Pacific coast. We have quite an exciting lineup planned for the electronic field trips next year, and hopefully you'll be able to join us as we travel the country to bring you these remarkable programs. I'll be back inside in a few minutes to introduce our special guest, but for now, let's go back to Jeff.
Thanks, Joanne. It's great to be back inside. I've got to talk to Deshaun here because he's gotten sand all over my Hot Wheels. Deshaun, we're going to have to talk about that in just a moment, okay? But for now, we're going to go all the way back to Carlsbad because, Marjorie, we understand you've got a very special announcement about a brand new website introduction.
We do. Thank you, Jeff. We're so excited to be launching Level 3 today. Unfortunately, I haven't made it past Level 1, but for those of you that are ready, Level 3 is now available. So here's a little preview.
Welcome to the Electronic Field Trips Research and Development Labs. We've got a special treat for you today. We're launching the final level of Exploring Carlsbad Caverns web game. You've been playing for a month now. Before we do that, though, I wanted to show you exactly how we make the game so real. So follow me. This is where we experiment and design to make sure you're having the most fun and realistic experience possible. Remember all those flashlights you've earned so far in the game? Well, Brandon here is responsible for making sure you've got the best one possible to get you through the cave. How's it going, Brandon?
Not bad. It's been a pretty enlightening experience.
Those caves get pretty dark. To make sure we understand just how dark it gets, we have a team of people walking around pitch darkness 24 hours a day. It hurts their productivity, but you'll enjoy the result. This new level involves some fancy new skills. I hope you're ready. One of them is rappelling down some intense ledges using just rope. That part of the website has been done for weeks, though, so I don't exactly know what Josh is doing here.
Oh, I'm just hanging around.
And of course, we can't forget about the most dedicated guy on the team, working day and night to get this new level ready. How's it going, Scott?
No time to talk now. I'm doing my laundry.
So there you have it, the top secret electronic field trip research and development labs. Now go to the address on your screen and you'll find the final level all ready for you to explore. There are a lot of new passages to explore, lots of twists and turns around every corner, and lots of fun to be had. Now I've got to get back. It's my turn to be blindfolded. Enjoy.
Cool, I can't wait to check out Level 3. Now let's take it to this discussion forum with Caitlin and Ada.
Hi guys. Okay, one of the questions that we have is, what is your favorite cave decoration? My favorite cave decoration was when we went to Left Hand Tunnel and we saw the cave bacon, which is drapery.
Well, what my question was what's the longest cave in the U.S.? Well, I think my guess is Mammoth Cave, and it's about 360 miles long. Back to you, Marjorie.
Thanks, girls. Good answers there. We now want to toss it back to Boston, where we're going to see Dr. Gora. Dr. Gora, are you ready?
Hello, Marjorie. I am really excited because we have many guests here and one very, very special guest. We're really delighted that Mrs. Ann Romney is here representing the governor, and Lieutenant Governor Carrie Healy is here. And to my right is none other than First Lady Laura Bush. We are so pleased that she was able to join us for this Ball State University electronic field trip. And Fran, would you like to tell the First Lady a little bit about why this is such a special week?
Well, as you know, Mrs. Bush, as someone who is the chair of our National Park Foundation, you're the honorary chair for the National Park Foundation that helps us do these things. They're one of the key partners, as is Ball State, to make this happen. This is National Park Week.
That's
and
right.
We are celebrating throughout our nation our 390 units of the National Park Service. And we have, this is history being made today, we have 36 million children and community partners that are watching today and to be celebrating our national parks. Didn't know if you might want to say hello to everyone.
Sure, I want to say hello to everyone. I'm so happy to be with you here in Boston to celebrate National Park Week, but I'm also happy that children from Carlsbad Caverns are watching and talking to us as well, because I grew up in a town very close to Carlsbad. And so the very first national park I ever went to was Carlsbad Caverns. When I was a Girl Scout, a little girl, my mother would drive us over and we'd get to explore those caverns. So I'm really happy that we have kids from Boston and kids from Carlsbad, and then a lot of students from all over the United States that are going to have this chance to take an electronic field trip. New Mexico is a long way away. Most of us wouldn't have the chance here to go to Carlsbad Caverns ourselves, but this way we're getting to see what Carlsbad is like and what the caverns are like. So I want to thank you all. I'm excited to be here with you as we do all these activities that have to do with caves, as we learn how Carlsbad Caverns was made. And so I'm really happy to have this chance to be with you all now.
We are so delighted that you are here, Mrs. Bush. And the children have been doing a lot of experiments, and we've got a great one coming up. Marjorie, do you want to tell us how the caves are formed and lead the students in a demonstration of how actually the caves were formed? They're now going to get a chance to play with all that Play-Doh and sugar cubes that they've been dying to get their hands on.
You bet. I want to thank you, ladies, for being here. Ms. Bush, thank you especially. We want to start you on this process. So we first want to flatten out the Play-Doh, like Connor's done. Connor, what should it look like?
Like a pancake.
Yeah, flatten it like a pancake. Our next step is to take those sugar cubes that you should already have. What are you going to do with those, Roselle?
You're going to put them in 2 rows of, we're going to have 6 sugar cubes.
You might have 6 to 8
sugar cubes, and stack them in the by the side.
Right, you don't want one single row. You want to make a stack. You might want to get them kind of close to the edge. And then we're going to fold that clay or Play-Doh over, just like Connor's fixing to show us. Let's take it like that. There you go. So Connor, after we fold the clay over, what should it look like?
Like a mouth with teeth or a taco.
Right, it should look like a mouth with teeth, or a taco. But we're fixing to change that shape. Roselle, what do we need to do next?
We need to roll it into a ball.
Right, so we're going to
pinch the edges.
There you go. Pinch the sides. You should have some sugar cubes showing.
Hello, everybody. Everybody see Mrs. Bush?
Okay, so now let's tell about what the Play-Doh and stuff would represent. What would the Play-Doh represent, Connor?
Like the rock around.
Okay, the rock around here. Roselle, what about the sugar cubes?
The sugar cubes represent the limestone.
The limestone. Remember that there was a strong acid from up under the ground. We'll talk about that in just a minute. I'm going to put our clay into the container. Roselle, if you'll pour the water. Thank you. Now, Roselle, what does that water represent?
The water represents the sulfuric acid.
Right. The water represents sulfuric acid, which was found way below the ground. Sulfuric acid is a strong acid. It's not anything you would want to touch. In fact, if you put it on your skin, it would really burn you. Sulfuric acid is the stuff that's found in your car battery. Now, let's see what's happening with our experiment. What do you think should be going on, Connor?
The sugar cubes should be dissolving.
Right. Wow, ours is really going to town right there. In real life, this is just how it happened. But remember, it's sulfuric acid that ate away that limestone. I hope the classroom in Boston is having the same luck that we are, because it's really working here.
Yeah, sure.
Dave, could we toss it to you and you tell us how that really happened? We're from where you are. Tell us about how the sulfuric acid made the big room.
I couldn't hear what she said, so I'm going to have her repeat it one more time.
Oh.
Hey, oh, how the big room formed with the sulfuric acid? Is that, okay, you guys want to go with that?
Well, when the cracks in the limestone started flowing with water, there became a water table, and what happened is in the water table there was hydrogen sulfide from the ground and mixed with the water, and what it did is it made sulfuric acid the same way that the sugar cubes are, and what happened is the sulfuric acid started to dissolve or eat away at the limestone, and the same way that the sugar is melting in the Plato cave. Back to you, Marjorie.
Thanks, guys. Now, if you'll look at your container, you should have kind of a vacant hole inside your clay or Play-Doh. What would that vacant hole be, Connor?
The cave.
Exactly, the cave. So that acid ate away the limestone rock and made this humongous room, this chamber. So that's how this cave was formed. Everybody, if you will, pull your cave out of the water. Who wants to be our puller outer?
Connor. Got this one.
Do you see how that happened? Those sugar cubes dissolved and left that empty spot, just like that sulfuric acid, which was here, left this big empty spot, this big cave. Remember that we have the website that's going on, so we've got level 1, level 2, and now level 3. So on level 1, you should be just learning about the cave. You're kind of exploring various things. In level 2, you're actually going to get to go to Lower Cave. That's one of our off-trail tours with the ranger. And in level 3, you get to do some cave mapping. Do you guys know what cave mapping is?
Yes. Cave mapping is where they take a pencil and a paper and they go start walking around in the cave and mapping everything down.
That's right. And when they map, they have to pinpoint on that piece of paper where every stalactite is, where every stalagmite is. It's tedious work, but it's really important because that's how we know what's in a cave. Paula?
All right, well, we've got a cave here too. Eli's holding that up for you, and you can see our cave. And we've actually named our cave. What's our name?
Our cave is named Sweet Cave.
There you go. Back to you, Marjorie.
Sweet Cave, I like that. We never thought to name our cave. Did y'all know in real life, because a lot of folks are tempted to name a cave after themselves, but when you're really naming a cave, you can't name it after somebody that's alive. Dr. Gora, any comments, questions from you?
We are really excited, Marjorie. We've had a great cave activity. All of the students have formed caves and seen how the calcium carbonate really dissolves the limestone and creates those rooms that you've been walking around. As you can hear the hubbub of activity behind me, we've had a lot of fun playing with our sugar cubes and Play-Doh. And Mrs. Bush has been talking to all the students and visiting all of the different tables and has had a chance to see how caves are formed, and I think she's had a lot of fun today. Mrs. Bush, could I ask you to comment?
I have had a lot of fun, and I actually had a chance to make a cave myself. So I have a long cave room, sort of like some of those rooms at Carlsbad Caverns. This is a chance for me to tell everyone that during National Park Week, we want to all recommit to making sure we take care of our parks. There are a lot of great parks, national parks in Boston. As you all know, you can walk the Freedom Trail here in Boston. You can go on the USS Constitution, which is a national park. You might not know it, but I live in a national park. The White House is a national park. And so our national parks are everything from beautiful historical sites like the White House to our most magnificent and pristine natural landscapes like Carlsbad Caverns, or like all of our big western parks, Yosemite, Yellowstone, Glacier National Park. And every summer I hike in the national park with a few friends that I grew up with in West Texas, very close to Carlsbad. And we get together every summer and hike in a national park. And last summer, we took our girls, we all have daughters, and we took our daughters and we took a river trip down the Colorado River and then hiked out of the Grand Canyon.
Wow.
So I want to encourage each one of you to continue to study the national parks, to get on the Web Ranger site so you can find out about national parks everywhere. When you visit your national parks that are here locally, get the junior ranger information so you can become a junior ranger. And then when you grow up, think about becoming a park ranger.
That's a great idea. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You know, we'll have a chance through Ball State University's electronic field trips to visit 3 more national parks next year, and we're really looking forward to that. So thanks a lot, Boston Warren Prescott students, for being here with us. And Marjorie, take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Gora. Thank you, Director Manella. Thank you, Mrs. Bush, for joining us. So, now you know how this cave was formed, and we know that this is a national park. This is Carlsbad Caverns National Park. Why are national parks important? Anybody know?
Because we have, there's a park, and it's known all over the country and all over the world, and they know that it's an important place to go look and take care of.
Right. National parks are places for all of the public to enjoy, but it's our responsibility as U.S. citizens to take care of them. Who owns the national parks, guys?
Everybody. Everybody.
That's right. If you are a U.S. citizen, you own the national park, so it's up to you to help us take care of those sites, right? Yep. National parks are places of treasure. They might be places of beauty, historic sites, seashores, recreation areas, battlefields. They're all kind of national park sites. In fact, there are over 380. Did y'all know that?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah,
Wow, good for you. So we encourage you to visit your national parks. We want you to come here and visit Carlsbad Caverns National Park. Keep in mind that when you come to Carlsbad Caverns, you're visiting a place that's very fragile. The cave is a delicate ecosystem, and it's up to us all to take care of it. What's one of the ways that you can help take care of this national park? Connor, you got an idea?
You might wanna
would you touch anything like the formations? Why not?
because the oils on your skin will make it waterproof, and then it'll be inactive.
That's very good. Mason, what's another way to help take care of this national park?
You can, like...
How about follow the rules?
Yeah, follow the rules and try, you might walk here. Well, no, because that's a really, really long walk.
Okay, we want to thank our sponsors. Remember to follow those rules. Our sponsors are who, Roselle?
The National Park Foundation,
the National Park Service,
Ball State University, Best Buy Children's Foundation.
Okay, we want to give it back to Jeff in Boston for just a second. Jeff, stay tuned with us. Jeff, it's up to you now.
Today's program with a few questions from the kids. Georgia Morgan Fleming, who is a student reporter for Weekly Reader. Georgia, you have a question for Mrs. Bush.
First Lady Laura Bush, on behalf of the Weekly Reader, I like Kids in America want to know. Park Foundation.
Well, I became the honorary chair actually because the National Park Foundation asked me. But the reason I said yes is because the national parks are so important to me personally. I love to hike in them. I want them to stay perfect so that your children and your grandchildren also will be able to have the chance to hike in the national parks, to visit all of our historical sites. And also because the National Park Foundation supports the Junior Rangers. Yay. So they support something just like this electronic field trip that we've been on. If you go to any of your parks, you can ask for your junior ranger activities. They'll tell you all the things you can do while you're in that park. You'll learn about the wildlife and the plants and the trees that are there. And then you can become sworn in as a junior ranger. Fran and I have had a lot of fun swearing in different groups of kids at different national parks in the United States when they completed their junior ranger questionnaire and then they became junior rangers.
So all of you have to become junior rangers this week.
Yeah.
Mrs. Bush, thank you.
Week. Thank you.
Where's Sophie? Sophie, you have a question for
Sophie,
Mrs.
right here.
Bush. Go ahead.
What's your favorite activity to do in a national park?
Well, I love to hike in the national parks, but there are all kinds of parks. Even if you don't want to hike or if you don't like camping, there are a lot of parks you can go to where you learn about American history, like the White House is one, or the Martin Luther King Center in Atlanta, Georgia is another one. The Jefferson Memorial in Washington, here in town, the Freedom Trail, the USS Constitution. Have you been on the USS Constitution?
Yeah.
I think it's right outside the window.
outside, yeah.
And so you learn a lot of things about American history and learn a lot of things about all of the places that we want to protect in our country that are so special and that we're so lucky to have because we're Americans. Our beautiful and pristine natural sites, as well as our very important historical sites.
Okay, Mrs. Bush, thanks. I think we've got a call-in question from Corina, who is at Put-in Bay Elementary in Upper Ohio. Corina, are you on the phone?
Wow.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Corina. Hi, Corina.
Hello, Mrs. Bush. On Southwest Island where we live, we have Perry's International and Victory Peace Memorial. It is a national park and lots of people come to visit. What is it like for you to live in the White House, which is also a national park?
Well, it's a lot of fun to get to live in the White House because we live with all the furniture and beautiful paintings that belong to other presidents. And so we think about those other families all the time when we're there in the White House. And we want to leave it beautiful and perfect for the next families that move in there and for all the visitors who get to come to the White House every year. Have any of you visited the White House?
No. Some of you have, huh? Some of you have. It's great.
A lot of schools will take a 6th or 7th grade school field trip and come to the White House. So
It's a great one. It's a great one.
And I think we have one final question for the First Lady. Let's go back out to Carlsbad, New Mexico. Haley Hunter from Cowan Elementary in Carlsbad. Haley, are you on the line?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello, Mrs. Bush. What's your favorite national park and why?
What's my favorite national park?
And why?
And why? That's a very, very hard question to answer. Of course, I love the White House since I live there, and it's a national park, and it's a beautiful house. But I think I'd have to say the Grand Canyon is my favorite one. And if you go down into the bottom of the Grand Canyon, you can do a river trip where you float on the Colorado River. And then there's also beautiful hiking, and because of the way the canyon is made and how deep it is, you can see all the layers of geology. And I think that's really interesting.
Can you imagine Miss Bush went all the way
but
down?
I do love Carlsbad Caverns, too.
Yes, that's a good one.
Well, of all the electronic field trips that we've been involved with, this, I think, perhaps tops them all, Mrs. Bush. This has been a very special program, graced by your presence today. We're so grateful for you to have been here and to share this with us. So we also appreciate Dr. Joanne Gora and Ball State University and all of her crew for the production of today's program. And Fran, your staff from the National Park Service and the National Park Foundation, it's been a real special privilege to spend this afternoon with all of you.
Thank you, Jeff. We appreciate Ball State and also National Park Foundation for making this happen.
And we want to remind you again that our final program, or at least the next one coming up, is going to be October 17th, the beginning of next school year. That will be from Philadelphia, the Independence National Historical Park, the home of the Liberty Bell, the Declaration of Independence. You can see them all in that program broadcast live by Ball State University on October the 17th. Mrs. Bush, thank you again to have been with you today. Everybody take a look over there at camera number 1, I believe, and let's wave and thank everybody for joining us on today's electronic field trip. Join us next time.
Happy National Park Week. Bye-bye. Happy National Park Week. Yay.